The air outside the Grand Royale Theater shimmered with the flash of cameras. The red carpet, stretching like a river of fire beneath the feet of Hollywood's most powerful, was packed with A-list celebrities, journalists, and screaming fans craning for a glimpse of their favorite stars. It was the biggest night of the year, the prestigious International Arts and Music Awards, and every major news outlet had its cameras locked on the arrivals. Inside one of the sleek, black SUVs pulling up to the curb, Malik Carter adjusted the cuffs of his tuxedo, exhaling slowly. He had walked many red carpets before, but tonight was different. Tonight he was the moment. At just 28, Malik was one of the most celebrated entertainers of the decade, a chart-topping musician, a rising force in Hollywood, and the favorite to take home Artist of the Year, the highest honor of the night. After years of relentless work, sold-out tours, and record-breaking albums, this was set to be the defining moment of his career. As the car rolled to a stop, his driver turned back with a grin. "Ready for history?" Malik smirked, running a hand over his neatly shaped beard. "Born ready." The door opened to a wall of flashing lights. Cheers erupted from the crowd as Malik stepped out, exuding effortless confidence. Dressed in a custom midnight blue tux, he looked every bit the superstar. Fans called his name, reporters leaned forward, hoping for a quick soundbite, and photographers rushed to get the perfect shot. But just as Malik prepared to take his first step onto the red carpet, a firm hand clamped onto his shoulder. "Sir, this area is for VIP guests only." The words hit him like cold water. Malik turned to find himself face to face with a uniformed security guard officer, Ray Holden. Holden's expression was impassive, his stance rigid, but there was something in his eyes, something that Malik had seen before. That look, the quiet but unmistakable assumption that he didn't belong here. Malik took a slow breath, willing himself to stay calm. Maybe this was a simple mistake. Maybe Holden didn't recognize him. "I am a VIP guest," Malik said evenly. "Check your list." Holden didn't move. "I don't have time for that, sir. I need you to step aside." A few people nearby turned to watch. The cameras were still flashing, but now, the energy had shifted. Malik's jaw tightened. "Listen, man. I'm literally nominated for Artist of the Year. I belong here." Holden barely flinched. If anything, his grip on Malik's arm tightened slightly. "I don't care who you say you are," he said flatly. "This area is restricted." That was when Malik realized this wasn't a mistake. Holden had looked at the list. Holden did know who he was, and he still didn't care. The cameras caught everything. The reporters whispered. The moment stretched into something unbearable. Malik had spent his whole life fighting to prove himself in an industry that had never been built for people like him. He had climbed to the top with nothing but talent and persistence, breaking down barriers, setting records, and making history. And yet, here he was still being told he didn't belong. Holden's grip on his arm remained firm. Malik clenched his fists. A choice hung in the air: stand his ground or let this man humiliate him in front of the world. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, a journalist gasped, "Wait, is that Malik Carter?" And just like that, the tide began to turn. The shift in the atmosphere was instant. A murmur rippled through the red carpet as reporters, photographers, and fans snapped their heads toward Malik. The name Malik Carter, the night's biggest nominee, the chart-topping, history-making artist, spread like wildfire. Within seconds, the cameras that had been casually capturing the evening's arrivals were now fixed on him, their lenses zooming in on the bizarre scene unfolding in real time. Holden, still gripping Malik's arm, froze. The slight furrow in his brow suggested that he had just realized his mistake, but not fully. "Not yet." The journalist who had spoken first stepped closer, adjusting the press badge on her blazer. "You're kidding, right?" she asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You're stopping Malik Carter? The man is literally the biggest nominee of the night." Malik exhaled sharply, shaking his head. He wasn't surprised. Frustrated? Yes. Angry? Absolutely. But surprised? Not at all. This wasn't the first time a man like Holden had looked at him and seen a problem instead of a person. It had happened in luxury stores, in expensive hotels, even at elite Hollywood parties where his name was on the damn guest list. And yet, every time, it still stung. He yanked his arm out of Holden's grip. "I told you, man," he said, his voice low but sharp. "I belong here." Holden's face twitched with something Malik had seen before: pride battling logic. He wanted to argue, to insist he was just doing his job. But now, the cameras were watching. And so was the entire industry. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. The red carpet was supposed to be a celebration, but now it was a scene. The moment grew bigger than just Malik and Holden. It became something else entirely. Security's out here profiling nominees now? One journalist muttered, jotting something in their notepad. This is not a good look for the event, another reporter whispered to their producer. A low, collective disapproval started spreading through the A-list attendees. Other artists, actors, and executives had begun paying attention. The event's PR team, a group of impeccably dressed, earpiece-wearing professionals, stood at a distance, visibly panicking, and then, just when Malik thought things couldn't get worse, someone else stepped in. A deep, commanding voice cut through the noise. What the hell is going on here? Heads turned. Stepping onto the red carpet in a perfectly tailored black suit was Andre Sinclair, one of the most powerful executives in the music industry. A titan, a legend, a man who had been in the game for decades and had built careers from the ground up. He also happened to be one of Malik's biggest mentors, and right now, he did not look pleased. Holden immediately straightened, as if sensing that the man before him held real authority. Sinclair's sharp eyes darted between Malik and Holden before settling on the security guard with something dangerously close to disgust. You're telling me, Sinclair said, slow and deliberate, that you just tried to kick out the man who's probably about to win the biggest award of the night? Holden opened his mouth, but no words came out. Sinclair scoffed. Jesus Christ, you've got some nerve. Man. Double quotes. At that moment, the event organizers finally rushed in. A frantic woman in a headset practically shoved Holden aside as she reached for Malik, her hands raised in a panicked, apologetic gesture. Mr. Carter, I am so sorry for this mix-up. Please, come in. We've been expecting you. Malik didn't move right away. He could feel everything: the heat of the cameras, the tension in the air, the silent, suffocating truth that this wasn't just about tonight. This was about every time this had happened before. Every time someone had questioned if he deserved to be in the room, despite the fact that he had worked harder than most to get there. And the worst part, if that journalist hadn't spoken up, if those cameras hadn't been rolling, Holden would have gotten away with it. Malik finally inhaled deeply, his chest rising and falling as he let the moment settle. Then, he adjusted his cufflinks, straightened his tuxedo, and stepped onto the red carpet like he owned it. Because he did. Because he belonged here. Holden, still standing there, looked small. He had been ready to flex his authority, to put Malik in his place. But now, he was just the man who had tried and failed to humiliate a superstar. The internet would never forget that. Malik, with a final glance over his shoulder, locked eyes with Holden and said two words that made the security guard's stomach sink. Do better. Then he turned, smiled for the cameras, and walked into the building where his name was already written in history. By the time Malik Carter took his seat inside the Grand Royal Theater, the entire world had already seen what happened. The internet had done what it did best, turning seconds into scandal. A single red carpet moment into a viral reckoning. Clips of the incident flooded social media, racking up millions of views in minutes. News headlines screamed racial profiling at the biggest night in entertainment, while hashtags like #LetMalikeen, #racism on the red carpet, and #DoBetter Holden trended worldwide. Every major entertainment network picked up the story, and before Malik even had time to take a sip of his champagne, his phone was blowing up with texts from friends, family, and industry insiders. Backstage, panicked PR reps and event organizers scrambled to contain the situation. Statements were being drafted, press releases prepared. No one wanted to be the face of a racial scandal on the biggest night in Hollywood. But there was one person no one had heard from yet. Ray Holden, the security guard who had tried to remove Malik from his own event, was now at the center of a firestorm. Holden hadn't even made it home before his name leaked to the press. Internet sleuths uncovered his history, his old social media posts, complaints from past jobs, and even former co-workers who had always suspected he had a bias problem. And the worst part, it wasn't just fans calling for his termination. It was powerful people. Andre Sinclair, the music mogul who had stepped in on the red carpet, had personally called the event organizers and demanded accountability. And when someone like Andre Sinclair makes a call, people listen. By midnight, while Malik stood on stage delivering a heartfelt acceptance speech for Artist of the Year, Holden was being escorted off the premises by his own security team. Fired, effective immediately. The next morning, every major talk show, podcast, and news outlet wanted one thing: Malik's thoughts on what had happened. Would he press charges? Would he demand a lawsuit? Would he use this moment to completely destroy Holden's career? The world waited, but instead of rushing to social media, Malik did what he did best. He thought first. 2 days later, he appeared on the late night hour with an expression that was calm but serious. The host, Mark Ellis, wasted no time addressing the elephant in the room. So Ellis said, shaking his head, "You get nominated for the biggest award of your life, and before you can even set foot on the red carpet, security tries to throw you out. Walk me through what was going through your head." Malik exhaled, adjusting his posture. "You know what?" he said slowly. "At first, I was just mad. Like, really mad. But not because of what happened to me. Because of what it represents. Because this wasn't the first time, and I doubt it'll be the last." The audience fell silent. "This happens to black men every single day," Malik continued. "We get questioned, doubted, pushed out of places we've worked twice as hard to get into. And the only reason this went viral is because it happened to me, and there were cameras. But what about the people who don't have that? What about the people who get profiled in stores, in offices, in schools, and no one believes them?" Mark Ellis leaned forward. "So what do we do about it?" Malik didn't hesitate. "We start by acknowledging that this isn't an isolated incident. We hold institutions accountable. We make sure security, law enforcement, and companies actually train their employees on bias and racial profiling. We don't just say do better, we make sure they do better." The crowd erupted into applause, and just like that, Malik Carter turned a moment of humiliation into a movement. In the weeks that followed, Malik's words sparked real change. The event organizers issued a formal apology, not just to Malik but to every black artist who had ever felt unwelcome in elite spaces. They announced a complete overhaul of their security policies, including racial bias training for all future events. But Malik didn't stop there. He partnered with major advocacy groups to launch the Carter Initiative, a program focused on eliminating racial profiling in entertainment, luxury spaces, and high-profile events. Celebrities rallied behind him. Brands, production companies, and security firms pledged to implement new policies to prevent future discrimination. As for Ray Holden, well, he had disappeared from the spotlight at least for now. Some people wanted redemption for him. Others said he got what he deserved. But Malik had moved on, because while Ray Holden had tried to take away his moment, Malik had made it even bigger. And this brings us to the end of the story. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.